Today on the Locked On Blues podcast, Jordan Binnington is back, allowing 1 goal in his second to last game and 0 goals in his most recent game. The demise of Jordan Binnington was greatly exaggerated. Clearly, as we now have Jordan Binnington back in his starting form. So we'll be talking about that. The
Josh, you
victory
look
over...
great. I can see your
Oh,
pores up
thank
this
you.
close.
Thank you. Yeah, we got the new YouTube setup as well, which is a little bit of a precursor for something very, very exciting. Make sure you don't miss Wednesday's episode. That's all I'll say. Talking about the victory over the Chicago Blackhawks, and going to be talking about, Justin Faulk, the defense, and have we figured things out? Probably not, but maybe. Stay tuned.
You're Locked On Blues, your daily podcast on the St. Louis Blues. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a minute. Tommy and I have been busy, midterms last week and all that stuff, but it is time for another edition of the Locked On Blues podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and your number one source for daily Blues content. I'm Josh Hyman, and I am joined by my crystal clear HD co-host Thomas Welch in the brand new YouTube setup that, like I said, is a precursor for something big and very exciting that is going
with
to
the rosy
happen
cheeks
this week. Make sure you stay tuned for that. But we got a really fun episode for you guys today. The Blues have been playing great hockey lately. We got 2 games to go over. The victory over the Chicago Blackhawks, where Jordan Binnington got his shutout. And then the game before that against a team that I don't remember because the Philadelphia Flyers and Buffalo Sabres. We got a lot to talk about. Did we talk about the Philly game? I don't remember. It's been a while. Jordan Binnington's been playing great. We're going to be talking about all of his performances lately and the team's performances as well. But before we get into that, I wanted to let you guys know that today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline.net has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Tommy, I feel much more up and close and personal with you. This is going to be a real intimate episode. I'm excited.
I like that.
Got a lot to talk about. We've been in the midst of a goalie controversy for good 2 months now, with Ville Husso basically taking over the starter's net and Jordan Binnington unable to find his footing. I think his last win had, previously come in December before the game against Philly, if I'm correct there. It had been a while before he had been able to really get his feet under. It was either his last win or his last win without giving up 5 goals, something like that. But yeah, he had been the backup goalie for a good 2 months, and then he comes in and allows 1 goal in a performance. Ville Husso starts the next game, and then gets a shutout in his next performance. So Binnington is back. The Blues are playing really good hockey. We're going to start with that before we get into some more of the nitty gritty details of the Chicago game and stuff like that. So, what have you liked out of Jordan Binnington's game? And I guess follow up question for a little bit later: what the heck do you do now if you're the St. Louis Blues? Who do you start in the next game?
Well, I think the biggest thing for Jordan Binnington when you break down his game is always making those big saves, right? And I feel like that's easy to say for any goaltenders, if you make the big saves, you're going to come out victorious. But I feel like there's a lot of goalies out there that kind of let in squeakers and let in backbreakers, right? And I feel like for Binnington, hot off of a couple games, breakaways right off the jump, and he stones them cold. So the defense feels more comfortable in front of him. And they play better as a result. And I feel like the Chicago Blackhawks kind of the same way. I mean, that one-timer save on Patrick Kane looked exactly like a couple of saves that Jordan Binnington had in the playoffs, one against the Winnipeg Jets especially. So for him to be playing the way that he is right now, and I know before everyone jumps on top of us, it's a small sample size. I get it's 2 games, but having that all-star break to kind of get your bearings and figure out what you did wrong and maybe step back and breathe, look at your game, and then come back into it, I feel like was crucial for him. And so, Craig Berube talks about it all the time. It's always a great thing to have 2 goalies that are playing great hockey, and they're going to need both of them to win the Stanley Cup. So when it comes to who do you start, I think Craig has kind of said it's like an alternate thing, and they have a schedule of who's going to go for whose games, whatever it might be. But I think another question you got to ask yourself is if Jordan Binnington continues to play like this and looks like shades of himself from 2019, what do you do with Ville Husso? Because it's going to be a UFA at the end of the season. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, you have to keep him for the cup run and all those things. But you look over at Nashville Predators, who are a cup run poised team, and they're looking at moving Philip Forsberg. So I don't know. There's got to be something there to where, like, either you keep the guy and you've got a nasty tandem to help you all the way out through the playoffs, maybe add on defense. I don't know what that looks like, especially with the cap as it is right now, and who you would have to move, because there'd definitely be some puzzle pieces to move there. But I like the way that this team is playing right now, which, by the way, I think that's a 4-game win streak. Kind of nasty, especially with the way that this team ended going into the All-Star break and kind of started off. It was a little bit sluggish, but they've turned it around. That Montreal Canadiens game seems long ago, and especially because of the way the Canadiens have been playing, it doesn't feel as backbreaking of a loss. So I like the way that the Blues are playing right now. I like David Perron having 2 goals on the night against the Blackhawks. I like Braden Shen staying hot with 2 assists. Robert Thomas got on the point board. Jordan Kyrou got on the point board. And Ivan Barbashev was back on it as well. So this team it feels like all the right players and the veterans and the players that are making the money, and even the phenoms coming up are kind of coming together at the right time for this home stretch. And I can't wait to see what the results will be. Goddamn. No. Oh, I can hear you now. Okay.
You hear me?
Yeah.
We're back?
Yeah.
All right. Technical difficulties aside, apologies for you YouTube viewers. It's going to be a little bit harder to iron that one out. So you mentioned that the St. Louis Blues are on a 4-game win streak. They're also on a 7-game point streak, 6-0-1 in their last 7 games with that one.
Perron's got 5 in his last 5.
And then I want to read you the goal totals for those 6 wins. 5-1 against the Blackhawks, 5-2 against the Senators, 6-3 against the Maple Leafs, 4-1 against the Flyers, 5-3 against the Sabres, and 4-0 against the Blackhawks. So in those 6 wins, only scored below 5 goals twice. And when they did, or not 6-game win streak, but in those 6 wins, I should say, scored below 5 goals only twice. And when they did, they allowed 1 and 0 goals. So kind of, 4 of those games were just offense was carrying them. And then 2 of those games, the offense wasn't quite as hot and the defense stepped it up. So winning in different ways amongst those 6 games, it's not like their offense was just on fire, carrying them through those wins. It was a little bit of offense, a little bit of defense, a little bit of goaltending, all around victories. Maybe the most consistent stretch of Blues hockey this season. If you remove that, anomaly of a Montreal game, which, to their credit, they were playing really hot hockey and still are playing pretty hot compared to, how they were in the rest of the season. So not the worst loss, a week out, still not great. But, if you that aside, 6 wins in the last 7 games, 7 games with points in their last 7 games. Can't complain too much. So we'll be talking all about that, more specifically about the Chicago game, Justin Faulk, the defense, all that and more. But first, I wanted to tell you guys about our friends over at Built Bar. This is the time of year that I've pretty much given up on all of my New Year's resolutions, but not this year. I'm sticking to my resolution to eat right. Thanks to Built Bar, it almost feels like it's not really a resolution because I actually enjoy eating them. Have you tried the Puffs? If you haven't, you're missing out on one of Built Bar's best tasting bars. Puffs are the first ever protein-infused marshmallow. They're fluffy, they're marshmallowy. They're not just a protein bar. They're a treat, and they're covered in 100% real chocolate. All Built Bars are covered in 100% real chocolate, like I said. They're low-calorie, high-protein. You can replace your candy bars with these. They are better. A typical candy bar can be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories. So go to Built.com and scroll down to the macros chart. You'll be blown away. High-protein, low-calorie, high fiber, and low carb. Most Built Bars contain 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and 4 net carbs, as well as 17 grams of protein. So go to Built.com. Use promo code LOCKED15. You'll get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com. And we'll be right back. All right. Let me just get... I'll make sure it's all good. Yeah, we're good. Okay. So we are back with the second segment, and the Blues have been playing really good hockey as of late, and one such instance is a 4-0 victory over the Chicago Blackhawks. So, Tommy, what do you like in that game? What do you see? How the Blues come away with such a victory in dominant fashion?
I think it's just sticking to their game, right? I mean, obviously, the Blackhawks are a struggling team this year. As much as Marc-Andre Fleury decided to stand on his head, as he typically likes to do, I mean, the Blues offense is going to come at you in waves. We've talked about it all season long. The depth of this team is what's going to allow it to excel through the playoffs. It's not really going to be their defense. Maybe a couple games, the goaltending, they'll get a steal, but I think the offense is the bread and butter of this team. Like you said, their goal scoring production has never really wavered throughout this entire season. And that was prevalent against the Chicago Blackhawks. I mean, the Blackhawks are not nearly as deep, not nearly as talented, and they could just not hang with the big dogs. And that's what you have to do when you're a playoff contending team against these kind of lower of the bottom tier teams. You just got to go in, take care of business, beat up on them, then move on to the next one. And I think that's the mindset that the Blues had. And I think the road trip and this upcoming road trip to New York is kind of they got them that kind of killer mindset going, right? And I feel like at times we haven't seen that from this season, but I think they know that it's the home stretch of the season. Every point matters, especially in the Central, where it just seems like there's juggernauts left and right. Every team you look at, Colorado Avalanche are on a mutant tear. The Predators look like, I mean, a lot of people thought the Predators had no business being in playoff contention, and they're still flying on all cylinders. Saros is playing out of his mind. So, and the Wild, I mean, you've got stacked teams in the Central as far as you can look at. And so every point matters. And even though at times we've been frustrated with this team, I think they know that. And I think like a lot of teams kind of do that, like conserve energy in the tank until like the second half of the season. So maybe that was their strategy kind of going into it. But I think the Blues have always been a second half team, and always they know it. Like obviously they got enough veterans on this team to know what it takes to get to the playoffs and make it through the playoffs. So I fully expect them to do so. And I'm excited to see how it all unfolds.
Yeah. Speaking of a stacked Central Division, the Blues now sit kind of comfortably in second place in the Central. I say kind of because I say kind of because they have a 5-point lead. Sure. Minnesota's got 2 games in hand. You know, right behind them, Nashville, 64 points. The Blues have 70. So comfortable for now. Honestly, maybe close to the most comfortable position they've had all season in that Central Division spot. But you can't get comfortable, especially with a division as competitive as it is. 30 games left in the regular season. When you get to that point, it really starts ramping up. You really start getting that playoff level hockey is just going to start creeping up on you. But that being said, amidst a really competitive Central Division and, with a schedule that's starting to really ramp up in terms of frequency of games, the Blues have done a good job of weathering that storm early. And besides that one Montreal loss, which, we've our opinion on that.
Go check out the episode.
If you don't, go check out the episode. It should be front page of our YouTube channel, and then if you scroll down a couple episodes on our Spotify or whatever, you should find it. You can't miss the title. So great episode there. But besides that, the Blues have been playing really, really consistent hockey as of late, and it's the time where they needed to do so. Speaking of really consistent hockey, Tommy, one stat that's kind of disregarded a lot of times in NHL communities in terms of its legitimacy is plus minus. And I don't think we've really ever talked about plus minus on this podcast. Every once in a while we'll throw it out there, but we've never really focused on it. Now, that being said, there is something that kind of jumps off the page for me when you're looking at plus minus for the St. Louis Blues and for the NHL in general. And I want to kind of tease that for the third segment. So looking at the league leaders for plus minus in the NHL, Devin Taves is in first with plus 42, Johnny Gaudreau plus 40, Elias Lindholm plus 39, and then in fourth place you have Justin Faulk at a plus 36, which again, take with that what you will. But the thing that really jumps off the page for me is you got Colorado Avalanche, Calgary Flames, Florida Panthers, Colorado Avalanche, Calgary Flames, Florida Panthers, Calgary Flames, Colorado Avalanche. So in the top 13 teams, 13 players, it's like 4 guys apiece from the same team. Justin Faulk is the only guy on the St. Louis Blues that's up there. Has 12 plus minus 12 points, 12 units higher than the next highest guy on the Blues, Torrey Krug, who is a plus 24. So clearly, if plus minus indicates anything, it's that Justin Faulk has been the best player on the surface in terms of goal differential for the St. Louis Blues. So in the third segment, I want to talk about his performance and just the defense in general as well. Before we get into that, I want to tell you guys about our good friends over at betonline.net. Football might be over for this season, but basketball is in full steam for both pro and college hoops. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance props, to where the next fired coach is going to land, betonline.net is the number one spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your best source for hockey, boxing, and UFC odds, right to Olympic coverage and information. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts, and we'll be right back. All right, Tommy. With 10 of the top 11 players in plus minus belonging to 3 of the top, three of the top 5 teams 3 of the top 9 teams in the NHL, but 3 of the top teams in the NHL, and then the one outlier being Justin Faulk. Yeah, you could say plus minus doesn't mean something, but when there's an anomaly so large that, it's not just the whole Blues have a good plus minus. It's Justin Faulk has close to double the next highest plus minus on the team. That clearly means something. The stat exists for a reason. Maybe it's a little bogus at times, but that means something to you when you see a statistic like that, when you see something that jumps off the page as significantly as Justin Faulk being in 4th in the NHL for plus minus. What does that say to you about his game? Does that confirm what you think you've seen out of him this season?
Yeah, I think that's what it means more than anything. Is not that Justin Faulk is the best defenseman on the St. Louis Blues because of his plus minus, but I think the fact that he's the best defenseman on the Blues is supported by his plus minus, if that makes sense. I think what Colton Parayko brings to you in the defensive zone and size is great, and what Torrey Krug can bring to you in the offensive zone and his speed is great. But Justin Faulk gives you a little bit of everything. I mean, the guy defends the blue line like his life depends on it. He's not afraid to lay the body. He's good with his stick play. He's good covering his man. He can score goals. He can toe drag. He can win puck battles along the wall. He can hold the zone, and he can defend it well. I mean, this guy, it's kind of equivalent to it's not the same level of player, but the impact that Ryan O'Reilly has on every zone in an NHL game is kind of equivalent to what Justin Faulk brings to the St. Louis Blues. And I think that's why, it's so surprising that we've gotten to this point where we're saying arguably that he's the number one defenseman on this team when not too long ago, half the franchise, and me at times included, were ready to ship him out. And we're looking forward to the Seattle Kraken expansion draft so that we could get rid of his massive contract. But imagine this team without Justin Faulk right now. Holy.
I got a fun one for you. I'm looking at the team-wide plus minus right now. Justin Faulk's pairing mate, Torrey Krug, is a plus 24.
I know where this is going. And I know.
Who is the next highest defenseman? Buchnevich is at plus 20. He's up there. Who is the next highest defenseman on the St. Louis Blues in terms of plus minus? So Krug at plus 24, Justin Faulk at plus 36.
That's tough.
It's pretty funny.
And maybe it's Perunovich because of the lack of games played. But I'm gonna go with let's go Mikkola maybe or Bortz.
Nico Mikkola is tied with. I haven't said his name yet.
Colton Parayko?
Nope.
Who? Not Bortz? Wallman.
Nope.
Who else plays
Nope.
defense for us? Scandella. You're
Yup.
kidding. No way.
So,
there's
top
there's the
four.
latency and
Top
the
four.
polarity
Oh,
of
but it
the
gets
plus
better.
minus
It gets
stats for
better.
you in a nutshell right there.
It gets so much better. Justin Faulk, plus 36. Torrey Krug, plus 24. And then you move into the third defenseman and fourth. They're both tied. What do you think they are? Plus what? If they're number 3 and 4.
I bet there's a steep. I bet it's like plus 6.
Divided by 2.
3? Oh my god. Are you kidding me right now? Oh my god. Dude, that is insane though. But that I mean that shows you like the drop off in this team, and it really does show you the polarity in the stat that is plus minus.
Yep.
Holy
Colton
crap.
Parayko, -2. Robert Bortuzzo, -1.
Okay,
Yeah,
Josh, so let's kind of molding this question of the defense into the goaltending question. If you had to pick a starter, right, or they're both starters, right? 1A, 1B at this point.
Sure.
I mean, Jordan Binnington could kind of regress to the means, but the way that he played in these last 2 games, he's like, I mean, really, you could interchange both of them. If we're starting a playoff game tomorrow, whose name are you calling on and why?
In goal?
Yeah.
Tomorrow?
Yeah.
Jordan Binnington.
Why?
Because his confidence is probably the highest it's been all season. And if the playoffs start tomorrow and you start Ville Husso, gone. Ville Husso is expected to be the backup. So you start Jordan Binnington, he poops the bed in game 1 and 2. Ville Husso is ready to go. You start Ville Husso, any chance of Jordan Binnington remaining confident for the postseason is gone. He's the starter. He was supposed to be the starter. He still is supposed to be the starter, and he's played the best hockey he has all season in his last 2 starts. If the playoffs start tomorrow, I don't care if it's a small sample size. I'm giving him at the very least game 1.
So if you've been listening to this podcast, you might be a little confused at what I have to say next, because
Oh boy,
I've been pretty adamant about the idea that Ville Husso should be moved because of his lack of consistency. He's going to be a UFA after the season. Binnington's still the starter. You have to pay him, yada, yada, yada. If I'm playing a playoff game tomorrow and you're asking me to name the starter, Josh. And Jordan Binnington has 2 games under his belt where we said, hey, you played pretty well.
Get out of here.
I got to go with Ville Husso. I mean, the guy's been consistent. I mean, we're talking about lack of consistency in Ville Husso. It's year to year, right? This season, he's been about as consistent as you can ask of the guy. He's been a pillar for this team. And we consistently talk about the defense playing a different game in front of him. And because of that, I think you have to reward that and put him in at least game 1. I think Jordan Binnington is a vet, and I don't think it's going to ruin his confidence. I think it's going to light a fire under him even more. And it's obviously it's a good problem to have, right? But I think Ville Husso has earned the right in his consistent play throughout this season, even though Jordan Binnington has the Stanley Cup experience and has proven that he can bring a Stanley Cup home for the St. Louis Blues. I think Ville Husso deserves to get game 1 in a Stanley Cup playoff.
I think it's a really good question. And the only reason I'm saying Binnington is because you said start tomorrow. I still think it's a question that's going to be fleshed out, but the pinned comment on today's YouTube video will be that exact question. So make sure you guys let us know in the comments what you guys think. Because truly, I think it is a pristine debate to have, and it is a good problem to have. And if you're listening to
I don't think there's a wrong answer.
No, I don't. And like, it's why, like, it's a good problem to have. If you're watching us on YouTube, let us know in the comments what you think, because, you know, our opinions are pretty out there. You could ask us the same question in a week, and we might have opposite answers. That's the beauty of how many games the Blues are going to be playing in the next few months, or a few weeks, I should say.
Which, by the way, you want to talk about goaltending? March 2nd, they play the New York Rangers. They turn around and play them again in 8 games. So if you want to talk about this Blues offense and what it brings to the table, that's going to be a good test to see there. Trying to crack the egg that is Shesterkin on his way to a Vezina campaign.
Yep.
Jesus, good luck with that one.
Yep. So again, like I said, let us know in the YouTube comments your opinion on who should be starting in goalie. in goal if the playoffs start tomorrow. Or if you're listening to us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever, send us a tweet. We love reading interactions from you guys and stuff like that, especially with a good old goalie controversy. Who doesn't love that? Now, tell me, we have reached pretty much close to the end of today's episode. Got time for one more short little conversation. What do you think is the number one takeaway for this stretch of 7 games of consecutive earning a point? That was the weirdest, most discombobulated way of saying
What's
that.
the biggest takeaway from this
7-game point streak? Yes.
I think it's just support. I feel like the team has supported, like in games where the defense has looked bad, the offense has supported the defense and the goaltending has supported it as well, right? When in games where it looks like the defense or the goaltending might struggle, which hasn't been many, the offense and defense come around and kind of pick it up. And I think that's anytime you can do, if you win 2/3 of like those 3 facets of a game, 9 times out of 10, you're going to come away victorious unless you're going up against Ben Bishop in Game 7, which still came away victorious. But you had me in the first half. I'm not going to lie. I thought it was going to be one of those games.
The first 5 halves, first 5 periods of that game.
Yeah. Oh my God. Sometimes there's just games where a goalie stands.
Can you imagine if we did this podcast? If we did that, can you imagine if we did this podcast during that series?
Stroke, I think. I would have definitely had a stroke.
Oh, let's hear. Hey, here's hoping we got some similar moments to cover this time around. Because,
I'm sure there will be.
I missed that playoff run.
I know that. Oh, that would have been electric. But yeah, I think it's just support from the rest of the team and kind of and it's support from the players too. Like David Perron has had a struggling season, not the best season by statistical measures. He doesn't want to play that way. He hasn't found a rhythm with his injuries and COVID and pulled his groin and all these things. Yeah, he's got 5 points in the last 5 games. He's picking it up. The veterans are doing what
might
you
even
need
call
him
him a man on fire.
Yeah, exactly. Braden Shen, same way. So the guys that are getting the big contracts are stepping up when you need them. And the guys that aren't making a lot of money, but you have high expectations for, and Robert Thomas, who I think just passed Ivan Barbashev in points last game. So he's climbing up the ladder too. And Jordan Kyrie's up there as well. So, and obviously Vladimir Tarasenko, like all of these guys are just doing exactly what you expected them. And if you pick up more guys along the way, I mean, this team is going to be lethal in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, what you just said perfectly encapsulates what was going to be my answer for my biggest takeaway from the 7-game point streak. And if I had to sum it up in one word, it would be consistency. We've been talking about the inconsistency of the St. Louis Blues all season, and besides that Montreal loss, this has been probably the stretch where they've kind of gone back and forth between goalies the most during this whole controversy, and the team has finally played the same way in front of Jordan Binnington that they do in front of Ville Husso, and vice versa, getting equal contributions from everybody. No one's really, they're not relying on Jordan Kyrou putting up 4 points a night to propel their offense. They're getting, a goal from every forward line. Really consistent hockey, which is what you need if you're going to go on a playoff run. So fingers crossed that it can be the norm moving forward, because like we've been saying, they've got a lot of games coming up. So that means a lot of recap episodes for you here on the Locked On Blues podcast. So make sure you hit that follow or subscribe button on whatever podcast platform you're listening to us on. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube and that notification bell. That way, whenever we upload a new video, you guys can be the first to know. Interact with that pinned comment, chat with us, all that and more. Make sure you follow us on all of our socials. Locked On Blues on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. Follow me on Twitter at Josh Hyman NHL. Follow this guy on Twitter at TWelcher15. Thanks so much for listening. And as always, let's go Blues.